Welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast brought to you by Nerdtropolis. I'm your host, Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis. And joining me once again is my co-host, Drew Munhausen, the professional media and movie mastermind, who is apparently the latest officer in the Beverly Hills police department, found himself on the West Coast, it seems like.
Wait, Sean, do you hear that? Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, 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 ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, bum.
And goosebumps. I love it. You can do it one more time. One more verse.
That
is awesome. I love that. And I know that's in your head rent free now because you just watched pretty much all 4 films.
I did. I watched all 4. I watched the first one a couple weeks ago, but 2, 3, and 4 I've all watched within the past 48 hours. So that song, like I'm heating up my lunch, I'm humming that song. I'm getting ready for bed, I'm humming that song. I'm in my dreams, that song's playing. It's just nonstop, probably for the foreseeable future, because it's pretty nonstop throughout these movies, playing some version of it, some version or another.
It's a great one, but I'm super excited for this episode because like we usually do in the podcast, we dive into the world of cinema, exploring everything from beloved classics to the latest blockbusters. And, this is episode 48, and we're going to combine classics and a new blockbuster. We're talking about Beverly Hills Cop franchise as a whole, but we got 4 films we're probably going to talk about to some aspect, but definitely the latest one. So the heat is on with Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. Episode 48. Flip 48, what do you get? 84. I'm going to make this connection. 1984 is when the first film came out. So I think it's very fitting somewhat that we're on episode 48 and we're talking Beverly Hills Cop.
You know what? I'm not even going to call that a stretch. I like it. I'm here for it. I like the connection. I think it works.
It does work. We're going to make it work. But before we do get into all of that, I'm actually really excited for what we're going to get into. Do want to make sure you connect with us online. You can find me on every single social media platform at Sean Taj. Follow Nerdtropolis at Nerdtropolis. Don't forget to visit nerdtropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. Speaking of interviews, I'm dropping a lot. And I'm not going to jinx myself, but I think I might have an interview with one of the stars of Beverly Hills Cop. Stay tuned, folks. I think we can make it happen. But Drew, where can they find you where you're not contributing to Nerdtropolis, which you're just dropped a new review of Maxine. You're going to have Horizon on the site soon this week and more, I believe.
Yeah, and there's actually a connection to Maxine that this movie has that I'll talk about when we get to it. But yeah, check out those reviews. Otherwise, you can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms, weekly over at Fresh Out the Podcast, and then here weekly or multiple times a week on the Moviegoer Society. When you have a busy movie week like this week, we just talked A Quiet Place Day 1 and Horizon. Now we're talking Beverly Hills Cop. We've probably got Despicable Me 4 around the corner. There's just a lot during this time, and I'm here for it because obviously I like movies and like talking about them. So they're making that job very easy with everything they're releasing right now.
This is our therapy, talking movies. We absolutely love it. So don't forget to catch up on past episodes of the Moviegoer Society. Tune into my podcast, Real Insights, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, the Nerdtropolis YouTube channel. Please support our channels on however you're listening to us, but especially on YouTube. Thumbs up, leave a comment, share our videos and other content from Nerdtropolis. But Drew, I really don't have a segue into Beverly Hills Cop. I mean, we just started with your great little a cappella humming of the song. Absolutely love it. But I also recently watched, I believe, 1 and 2, 3, which you never seen before, I believe. Did you just watch these for the first time or have you watched them before?
No, all of them were first time watches for me.
Amazing. I've seen probably every single one 100 times. First to our Netflix. Where'd you watch number 3? I watched that recently, and I believe I watched that on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, 1 and 2 and the newest one. So 1 and 2 and 4, we'll just call Axel 4 for a second. Those are all on Netflix, but I believe 1, 2, and 3 are all on Paramount Plus as well. So I watched 3 on Paramount Plus.
So the first one came out in 1984. The original Beverly Hills Cop introduced us to Axel Foley, or how do we say it? Oxwell. I just love saying it that way. Detroit cop finds himself in Beverly Hills. First things first, these movies are rated R, which I think is what makes them so great, especially with Eddie Murphy leading the way, and really just, I guess let's talk about the first film, really laid down a really cool concept. And that's not just because of the storytelling. It's just kind of cool going from Detroit to LA. Very stark contrast, especially in the police department. And leading the way is Eddie Murphy. And then you have like these amazing other characters we get introduced to, with Judge Reinhold as Billy Rosewood and John Ashton as Taggart. And the dynamic, right? So, like, at first, Eddie Murphy is not liked for obvious reasons. And I think just throughout it, you just kind of see everyone warming up to him. And that's what I really love about this franchise. It started off with them slowly warming up to him and him like poking his way through things. And obviously, there's a lot of big crime that he solves. I'm not going to go into the plot points per se, because I really want people that haven't seen these films to really give them a chance. All four of them. Now, I can't believe it. From 1984 to now, 2024. How many years is that? I can't do math. That's 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
40 years of Beverly Hills Cop. And so I'm going to say it's number one. I'm going to rank really high up. I think it's the best one in general because what it introduced to us, and really is a stark contrast to 2 and 3, I will say. But if I have to compare the first movie to the new one, I almost feel like it's almost a beat for beat film similar to the first one. If you really watch 1 and 4, I think that was their most biggest influence of how they kind of started. If you just kind of compare them, which is not saying it's a copycat film, but it's a great formula, and what's what made the first one so great. They embedded it in number 4, and then kind of sprinkled in 2 and 3 jokes and callbacks, so forth. Beverly Hills Cop 2, I really liked as well. That came out in 1987, and that really follows Rosewood Taggart and obviously Eddie Murphy's character Axel Foley. Now that everyone's friends, they're friends with I guess it was their captain, Bogomil, Ronnie Cox, and he is getting shot up, and so they have to solve that. And that's a really cool one because that has Bridget Nielsen as the big bad, which I really enjoyed. And so you have that one. You jump to 3, which is in the theme park. And Drew was very surprised, I believe, that it took place in the theme park. I watched that one. Obviously, I was very young when I watched all 3. I watched them all on TV. And in 3, that came out in 1994, it takes place in a theme park called Wonder World. And I'm sure, Drew, you just thought that was wild. So just between the 3, go through kind of like your motion of watching the first 3 films.
Well, I think like it kind of goes to the filmmakers behind them too, because it's worth noting that the first 3 movies all have different directors, right? And so you've got the first one's directed by Martin Brest, the second one's directed by Tony Scott, and the second one feels like a Tony Scott movie. So it has that going for it. The third one is directed by John Landis, and it for sure kind of feels like it was made for kids like you who maybe grew up watching these movies on cable, even though they were R-rated movies. And they're like, well, here's another R-rated movie, but we're kind of like, I don't want to say directing it towards kids, but like it almost feels like a kid's movie dressed up, or like with an R-rated premise. It's kind of a strange one. It's way more wild. The first one is kind of a straight up cop movie, right? Like it's your standard kind of cop not detective, but just like mystery story. The second one has way bigger action and explosions, and the stakes feel a little bit higher, just at least with the action because of the Tony Scott of it all. And the third one, it's like Axel Foley's almost a superhero at times, the way that he's able to defy the odds. It's a little bit more cheesy than the other ones, and it tries a little bit harder to be funny. I don't know if it's always successful. Axel F, the newest one, feels more like, even though it has ties to all of them in a way, and it brings back characters that have been like Judge Reinhold's been in all 4 movies as well. It feels a little bit more in line with the first movie, I would say. Like it's the connective tissue, how it's built up. It just feels more in line with the original movie. I loved how, I know you don't want to get into individual beats, and I won't, but like just in general, this one opens up with The Heat Is On, which you referenced earlier, which is how the first one starts. But the first one is literally showing the Detroit heat, like people look like they're outside sweating. It looks hot. This one, that song plays, but it's winter. Like everything's very cold. We go to a hockey game. It's just a totally different. It's like similar vibes, but opposite seasons. It was a creative flex that I kind of liked as far as getting into this movie.
Yeah, I really love how this fourth film is more like the first film, which was made the franchise so amazing. Uh, I would say too, it's probably the most ultimate 80s version of Beverly Hills Cop. Even though two of them came out in the 80s, the second one is the most 80s, like typical action cop movie you can think of. And especially putting Bridget Nielsen in it really elevates the 80s aspect of it too and everything else. But great kind of villains all around, to be honest, in all three, and especially four, Axel F. And I really want to start off with Eddie Murphy returning as Axel Foley, and really not missing a beat at all. You know, there's a lot of films he came back to with Coming to America and just the newest stuff he's done. And, you know, his career has been really strange, but regardless, he's very likable. I've always loved everything he's done. I try to watch anything he shows up in just to see him because I think he's one of those actors and comedians in pop culture history that people love and adore and really want to support because he makes the world a little bit better. I feel like he's one of those people in the industry. So reprising his role, really easy to bring back that charisma of Axel Foley. And I think the last big performance I really enjoyed from him was Dolomite Is My Name. And I think this sits up there with the matching of the level of just performance because I feel like in Coming to America, I didn't feel like he was all the way in. I think this franchise is something he adores so much, even though Coming to America, the first one, is one of my favorites. The sequel, I feel like he wasn't as passionate, maybe. I'm not sure, or maybe just the timetable to make that film, which they could have done a much better job. But I think he really loves playing Axel Foley and loves this world to play in because it's also a serious role on top of that. It's not just a silly comedic role. It's not really a silly franchise, but they have a lot of fun. There's a lot of crazy cursing in it, a lot of headshots in the film, a couple like just, you know, it's pretty violent when it wants to be. And so I'm just excited to see Eddie Murphy back with the Lions jacket and making his way and still not welcome to this day in Beverly Hills. That's probably the funny part with his return. He's still not welcome. Did you like how quickly we saw Eddie Murphy and how quickly he came to Beverly Hills and pretty much starts all over again of being reintroduced to the Beverly Hills community?
Here's the thing with Eddie Murphy in these movies. I feel like in the first one, he's very young in the first one, right? He's like, that movie came out, Eddie was like 23 years old. So he's very young and he's kind of doing the Eddie Murphy thing, but he's playing a little bit more of a character in the first one. It feels by the second one, and especially by the third one, the Eddie Murphy character had just been established. And so he's just kind of being Eddie Murphy in those movies. In the newest one, it kind of feels like a little bit of both, right? Like you have some Eddie in it, but you have a little bit more Axel Foley. He doesn't do the Eddie laugh as much. That I'm not even going to try to embarrass myself and imitate it. But you know, but he does do some Axel Foley impressions, right? Like one of the Axel gimmicks is showing up somewhere that you're not supposed to be, acting like you're supposed to be there, putting on a character, there is even a part in this one that made me laugh where he's like, he starts to do it and it's like, no, I'm too tired for this. I'm not even going to try. And that cracked me up. Hold on. I'm assuming you can hear that in the background.
Barely. It's okay. But that's the great part of those scenes is they don't technically work anymore, and it's showing his age, and I guess showing that people can't be tricked the way they used to be in the 80s and so forth. So it was great to see him kind of dive into the Axel Foley we know or met in the very beginning, and kind of see him evolve at the same time. But there's still that young Axel Foley in it, which I really love. And where it really brings it out more is when there's like a reunion of certain cast members, especially the original cast. You know, this film brings back the beloved characters like Billy Rosewood, John Taggart, Jeffrey Friedman. And so that's obviously Judge Reinhold, John Ashton, and Paul Reiser, who is like, I just love seeing Paul Reiser. Like, to me, he's a big star still. Like Paul Reiser, I I grew up watching, and he's in everything. It was great that he was willing to come back. Obviously, Judge Reinhold, you can't have Billy. Billy is part of this franchise for sure. So anytime you see those dynamics, it's great. I just love seeing more Paul Reiser than I would have thought, especially being in Detroit. There's still a lot of him, which I really liked. And I just like seeing where everyone is in their careers. I think that's the most surprising and fun part. It doesn't dive too deep, but you can figure out what happened with everybody, and everyone's kind of leveled up or raised up, and some people have, a couple falling outs, which is great. So I love seeing their current career and their interactions with Foley. I wish we had a little more. I did not mention one of them, but Serge is also back, as you can see. Behind Drew, Serge is driving this lovely convertible, and he is now, little spoiler warning, he is now a realtor, which I was surprised. Left the art business. What was he in the second one?
He's not in the second
No, he's
one,
not
but
in the
he's
second
in the
one.
third one, and he's an arms dealer. Like,
Yeah,
he's
he's an arms
selling
dealer.
weapons.
Crazy weapons. Now he's a realtor, so that's a really exciting thing as well. So that's Bronson Pinchot. I guess you'd pronounce it. He's iconic to me. I always liked him in everything he's been in. Not doing the Serge gimmick. So like his other stuff is really great when he's not doing that. But I love Serge. I think Serge is a great return addition for that, and a fun scene. But I wish we got more of Serge, to be honest. I think that's the one character I wish we got a little bit more of. Or now I'm just like drawing a blank, so forgive me. Was there a Serge and Billy interaction?
Oh, I don't think
so,
he was
right?
in that scene because Billy is predisposed during a chunk of the movie.
I just love when he says the name Billy when he's in the first film, and when he is making what is he making? He's making the tea. He's like, with the lemon twist, Billy. Like, yeah, I just love the interaction with Billy and Serge. I think there's always a weird flirtation between the two of them, or like Billy not knowing that Serge is kind of flirting with him in that scene. And so that's what I kind of miss about that. And I don't think, we did not get that, but that's okay. Fans will enjoy seeing these reunions, which is great. New additions.
I was just gonna say I'm a big fan of John Ashton, who plays Taggart. I'm also a big fan of the movie Midnight Run, which he's in, and that's another Martin Brest movie, who did the first one and who cast John Ashton in it. But just Taggart, when I was watching these, Taggart's not in the third movie. They reference him being like retired at his lake house or in Phoenix or something. He's doing something. And so I'm glad that he's back and he's the chief in this one. So
and there's a reason why he's back too, because of that retirement. Like, everything kind of connects if you think about it. So nothing's like what do you call it? Deleted from like the previous stories. Everything is connected. They don't try to redo anything. Everything that has said and has been done in the past is reflected in this film. They don't try to retcon anything. Yeah, they don't want to retcon anything.
John Ashton, when the first one came out, he was like in his mid-30s, but he looked way older. Like,
wait, you tell me he was in his 30s in the first film? Because I thought he was 50 in the first film.
Yeah, let's see, he would have been 35, 36 when the first movie came out.
He was our age. He was our age pretty much when that came out, and we don't look. I mean, I don't think we look like that.
No offense to John Ashton. He looked older, was able to play older, which means that now when this one comes out and he's 76 years old, I thought he looks pretty good for 76, because he skewed older when he was younger, and now he's just grown into that. So I thought he looked pretty good. Whereas like Judge Reinhold, no offense to him, I love him, showing his age a little bit. Eddie, of course, looks great for his 60s, but we knew that was the case.
And Sedge is looking fabulous, as he would say, and I'm sure
he is. Get the F out.
Oh man, I think Serge was always a great addition. I want more of that for sure. Great reunion, but also great new additions in the franchise. Don't want to give too much of the plot. I want all of y'all to enjoy what's out there on Netflix right now. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt joins as Detective Abbott. Very fitting, fits very well into the department. Great dynamic with Foley. as well. And then you also have the introduction of Foley's daughter, played by Taylor Page. Um, his daughter's name is Janie Saunders, and there's a reason behind that. Really brings up, I thought, I wasn't sure if I was be okay with them introducing a child of Foley's, a grown adult. Because remember there was a series that they were trying to do and he was going to have a son. And I was like,
Yeah, I mean, wasn't Eddie Murphy supposed to be in it? But then the show, I don't know if it just never aired or if they didn't make it. I can't remember.
It made a pilot. It was going to pass the torch on. And I was like, I don't want to see that happen. And so seeing this, what they did with the daughter made so much sense. And I really liked the dynamic and what she does for her career and the whole reason behind everything really makes sense. And she actually is in hopefully not a spoiler, but just real quick, she is in LA where Foley is still in Detroit. And there's a reason why he goes to LA, but it's nice to see her also. She was working with Billy. So there's a family dynamic still, and we don't know much about it. And I don't think the movie really talks too much about it. I wish we got more. I kind of want to know who's the wife, who's the mom, unless that was foreshadowed. I'm not sure.
For me, so this is not to speak on Taylor Page because I thought she was fine in the movie, and I actually like her as an actress a lot in the few things I've seen her in. We actually saw her in the Toxic Avenger remake that we saw at Fantastic Fest, which still hasn't been distributed, so the wide audience has not seen that yet, but you and I were lucky enough to see it. But she's in a movie called Zola that she's very good in, so I liked her casting here. However, the role of playing the estranged daughter who like maybe has some beef with her dad, this is the main part of the story that just felt very cliche to me. Like you almost could have pulled out the storyline with the daughter, trimmed a little bit off this movie, and I don't think the movie would have suffered for it. Again, no offense to Taylor Page, who I think is fine in this movie. It's just the daughter storyline. This is the type of thing, especially in these types of legacy sequels, that's just a little played out. You add a son or daughter for the character, and maybe they have some beef or there's some drama between them. We've seen this a million times. I thought this was very just kind of old hat. So that's one of my only beefs with the movie. One of my few beefs.
You probably wanted to see a trade-off of her storyline kind of overlaps with Billy a little bit. And I think some of the stakes could have been gone to Billy and just the peril he's in. I'm going to say, sorry, probably another mild spoiler, but in general, just what's going on between them two, because they're kind of in the same thing. Billy and the daughter are dealing with kind of the same case. And so they could have transferred some over of what's going on, but still really good. And then you have Kevin Bacon. No secret, I'm gonna say it. It's a villainous role. You can tell in the trailers. You can tell in everything.
The moment Kevin Bacon has reached a point in his career, and I'm gonna date this back to maybe X-Men First Class when he was a villain in that. Kevin Bacon has reached the point in his career where in a lot of these movies he shows up and immediately, like as soon as it showed him, I'm like, oh, he's the bad guy. I mean, not to spoil, but the moment he's on screen, you know that there's something devious going on here. Again, throwing back to the Toxic Avenger remake we saw, he plays a villainous character in that. And Maxine, which is coming out this weekend, he's one of the villains in Maxine. So I feel like he's reached that point in his career where he's always playing a heavy, right? When Kevin Bacon shows up on screen, half the time these days, you can expect him to be a villainous character. So yeah, I guess he's just reached that point in his career.
No, that's very true. And it's part of the plot too. Like they don't really hide it per se, to that extent. But so it's a really good role for him. I like seeing him in anything. I thought his villain's pretty compelling, but the storyline, we're not getting too deep into it, is very similar to the other ones we've seen before, right? So that's what I kind of like about the franchise, is because it's about corruption at the end of the day, a lot of it. And just a lot of people doing things they shouldn't do that are really they're not high ranking per se. Not all of them are in like the field, but I think in 2, it was just, or even the first one, it was like an art dealer, right? So like, it's like really rich people that are doing things they shouldn't be doing, and they're covering up because they have a lot of money and have this lifestyle, or something with cops and stuff like that. And so the plot with this one is pretty darn good. And then you have bigger and bolder action. Drew, I think you said this. You wish this was in theaters. Me too. But to be honest, I never saw any of them in theaters. So it's like, it is what it is with Netflix. So like, this would be the only one that for me, I would have seen in theaters if it was offered. But now I just feel like I'm watching the other 3, which was on TV.
To talk about the Netflix of it all too, when I booted up Netflix this morning, I had it on my Xbox, and so like I loaded up the Netflix app, and immediately it was. I don't use Netflix every day because I have so many different streaming services. I really do flip between them, but like you boot up Netflix and it had this new kind of layout overview for Beverly Hills Cop XLF. They're obviously pushing this one huge, especially going into a holiday weekend. We got the 4th of July. And, this is going to be the #1 trending movie on Netflix, hands down. Like, you can expect this tomorrow, the little top 10 movies. It's going to be #1. And it's probably going to live there for at least the next week or two, because I was looking at the Netflix schedule and there's not that much big stuff coming out the rest of this month on Netflix.
I mean, it's dropping the day before. It's dropping the day before 4th of July. So like, this is the perfect time. You're gonna have a lot of people watching it during week. What day are we on? Are we on Wednesday? I don't know what day of the week it is anymore. We're on the middle of the week pretty much. And so like, when those releases come, they have an extra push going into the weekend and really can rank really quickly. This movie has, I think, $150 million budget, which is wild. But like Jerry
as much as the
yeah.
past 3 combined.
Yeah, so it's exciting. I mean, you got the same producers. You got a lot of backing from like a lot of the original people that are part of the franchise. So it is definitely a quality Netflix film. Like I was mentioning, bigger and bolder action, really utilizes R rating. I love a lot of the intense action sequences. I think more intense stuff than we've seen in the previous films. Plenty of colorful language. I think this film probably has more colorful language for whatever reason, which is fine. But I think that's what kind of makes Foley. There was a lot of the language stuff too, but a lot of danger, a lot of thrilling moments, a lot of high stakes, a lot of wild. There's a big scene. You've seen in the trailers. We're not going to talk much about it, but it's all practical. Pretty much, they've done it. A lot of stuff is filmed on the streets of LA, which is wild because there is a lot of big scenes right in the middle of LA, regardless if it's real Beverly Hills or in downtown or wherever it is. Very impressive. Nothing looks fake in this movie. I couldn't tell you what's fake, other maybe something with a helicopter, because you can only do so much with a helicopter, without it being really dangerous. But I thought the action was really great, trinkling with some of the humor and the heart. Kind of a good dynamic right there.
And the action is kind of what makes it clear, like why they're bringing Taylor Page and Joseph Gordon-Levitt into the fray. Like, you need some younger blood that can help with some of these action scenes. At the end of the day, Judge Reinhold is in his late 60s. John Ashton's in his 70s. They probably can't or don't even want to do the action scenes that they would have done 40 years ago. So like, I get it. So it kind of helps to have some younger characters. And it sounds like Eddie's already talked like they've got Beverly Hills Cop 5 in the works. So I would assume some of these people are coming back for that one as well. If that happens, they've been trying to make Beverly Hills Cop 4 for a decade plus, and Netflix has finally made that happen. So especially this one looks to probably do really well for Netflix. I would imagine they will want to greenlight a 5th one and move forward with it. I just liked that they were able to do callbacks to the previous films, but not in a way that's gross, like some of these legacy sequels go. And especially having watched them all recently, things like there's a bit in the second movie where where Eddie Murphy tells Judge Reinhold he needs to commandeer a vehicle. Like, they're in a vehicle chasing, get a vehicle. And Judge Reinhold gets a cement truck, like, cause that's the only thing that's available to him. And it's a good bit in that one. And in this one, in the opening action scene, so I'm not getting into really spoilers here. This is all in the first 10 minutes. They commandeer a snowplow as part of this. So I liked the trend of like commandeering strange vehicles.
And I will tell you this real quick. I actually know the guy that's in that snowplow. That's a good friend of mine, DA, who's from Houston, who is that driver who went to LA to start doing acting. So when I saw him, I did that Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I was like, oh my God, but that's DA. He has a pretty good role. I mean, that's a pretty good little scene with him and Eddie seeing that snowplow. So I got to shout out DA on that. That was really nice to see a familiar face in a big film like that.
That's really cool. There's a few other familiar faces that do pop up throughout the movie too, that I'm not going to say who they are. There's one cameo, and all I'll say is the cameo to me, if you can even call it a cameo, I don't know if this person's big enough to justify calling it a cameo. I'll just say Beverly Hills Cop Axel F may prove that the Beverly Hills Cop franchise exists in the same universe as the Happy Gilmore franchise. If you know what I'm saying, Sean.
I do, and that's funny because I wasn't sure which camo you were talking about, and then once you just said that, I was like, that would be really clever because why? Happy Gilmore 2 is coming to Netflix. And now there's going to be
Right.
this Netflix universe, which would be brilliant. I mean, that would be brilliant of this crossover. Um, it's brilliant. I'm just going to keep saying that because that's a really cool little connection if you can do that. And it's not a big deal to do. There just something that pops up. I mean, maybe Billy Rosewood ends up on the golf course somewhere in Happy Gilmore 2. Just something like that would be another kind of callback would be really cool. Yeah, speaking of, the film is packed with Easter eggs, great callbacks to the previous installments, like Drew has been saying. Longtime fans are going to enjoy, or if you just watch them all recently, it's fresh in your head. You're like, wow, this is just like the first one. And they're not cheesy, they're brilliant. Just like how a lot of people did not like number 3, there's a scene with Levitz where they're going through his files and then they talk about what he did there and they kind of make a little jab at the quality of number 3 for whatever reason you want to say. But really loved it. You know, you get the iconic locations of LA and Beverly Hills. And I would say, I just love when Rosewood, in all the films that he's in, always has some type of saying of, put your weapons down. He always has that. He's like, police, put your weapons down. He says it in like all the films. And the way he says it's funny because the way he says it, you wouldn't take him seriously as a cop, you know? So I just love that they kept that going as well. I really think this film is a great revival of the franchise that should have came back a long time ago. I mean, there's so much nostalgia, action, comedy, heart. You said they might do a 5th one. I'm fine with leaving it as is, unless the 5th one, even though I in my review myself, which I praised it, that I want to see more, I'll be happy if they close the door here for now. I just don't know how you take it to the next level. I don't. I love how this one is reminiscent of the first film and really has all the callbacks. But like 5 needs to be something like Bad Boys, maybe Bad Boys. What's the new one called? What was it called? Right, or is it Ride or Die? Yeah, Ride or Die. Something to elevate
Not
it.
for life, because that's the
Yeah,
third
that's
one.
what I think. Something to elevate it and where the stakes are so high and almost looks like it's like almost end of the world style or something. Something needs to come for 5, I believe, for it to really be something great. But a must watch for old fans or someone, a new audience. And you really don't have to watch the first 3 to enjoy this one. I would tell you that. You're an Eddie Murphy fan, watch it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's just really Eddie Murphy being Eddie Murphy, and there's some characters back. I don't know how much you really need to know about the history. I think you referenced Dolomite Is My Name earlier, which is also a Netflix movie worth noting, but that movie was kind of dubbed as like the return of Eddie Murphy, you know, and I've actually looking at his filmography, Coming to America, You People, Candy Cane Lane, and now Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. I've seen all the Eddie Murphy movies since his quote unquote return. And Beverly Hills Cop Axel F really does feel like the biggest return to form for Eddie, like being the Eddie that we know and love. He's in his 60s, he's older, but at least he's like a little bit more animated in this one. And I enjoyed that. Sean, if I had to put you on the spot now to do quick rankings of the 4, how would you rank the 4 Beverly Hills Cop movies?
I would do 1, 4, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm. Mine are very similar. I'd say 1, small gap. 2 and 4 are like kind of interchangeable for me right now, having watched them close together. I'm maybe putting 2 a little bit above 4, but like it could interchange, and then pretty big gap, and then 3. Not to say that I don't enjoy 3. I thought it had some moments. I'd heard going into that one like, oh, it's terrible, it's almost unwatchable. Like, no, it's not that bad. It's cheesy.
It's just silly. They're at a theme park. It's going to be more lighthearted. It's going to be different. It's in the 90s. They did very 90s things.
Yes, it reeks of 90s. It's more cartoony than the others, but like it has some charming moments.
And the story is pretty cool too. Like I liked it. Like, and I just liked the darkness that was going on underneath the theme park. Like, that's the thing about it. And that's what's so great about these films. It's like it's supposed to be a lighthearted world, and then there's some type of darkness that comes in because someone's corrupt or doing something they shouldn't do. And that's what the films are mostly about. And how smart Foley is to figuring it out, not being an official cop of Beverly Hills and coming from Detroit. And this guy is just like relentless of figuring things out. And he just has like that secret power in his head, right? Like just his detective skills is so great. And so I think that's what I love about these films is the detective aspect of it too. one callback scene, not in this one, but just in general, I'm calling back in my head, is when Foley was showing them how they bypass security with the stick of gum and the foil for the gum. And then Rosewood tries to do it himself into, and it does not work. And it's just like, no, just because Foley knows how to do it, Billy thinks he can do it. That just shows you how special Foley thinks and the little tricks he has. And yeah, just like the banana on the tailpipe, iconic scene from that first film. And yeah, all the movies are playing in my head right now as we're talking about it. That's how I really love this franchise so much.
Yeah, I don't have the same nostalgia for it, but having watched them all here recently, I do think they still hold up for the most part. And you know, despite not having nostalgia for it, I feel like, oh, I'm a Beverly Hills Cop fan. So, say what you will. Am I a poser? I don't know, but I do like these movies. And if they do make more of them, I'll watch them. If not, I think this is a solid little quadrilogy now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Welcome to the Beverly Hills Cop family, Drew. I will mention that when I would go to Beverly Hills for some of the junkets a couple of times, or the time I went, I go by the police station and I'm like in awe of like looking at the police station because it looks just like it is what it is in the movie. It's wild. It doesn't look like a real police station. It's beautiful. It looks like a college campus. I took a couple pictures there. And so anyone that's in that area or visits, go check it out. It's really just cool to see their police department is just out of this world. It's not what you expect in general, but the movie shows it. It's just a really cool campus. And I like some of the jokes they did in this film as well. But yeah, more to come for all of you out there, all you moviegoers out there. Check all our reviews. You can check out my Beverly Hills Cop full review online. Drew's got Maxine. I got Despicable Me 4 up there. We'll have Horizon. We'll have a lot more. I think you're doing Tuesday as well. Which is that?
Yeah, I'm going to do a movie called Tuesday. I'll review that one. And then, yeah, we talked about Horizon on the last episode of Moviegoers Society. So check that out if you're interested. But there's a written review that'll be up soon because I had enough to say about that movie that afterwards I was like, I gotta put some of these thoughts into words. So it should be on the site soon.
Yeah. So for all of you tuning in, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Share all the Nerdtropolis content we have coming your way. And once again, Drew, where can they find you?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen. You can find me weekly on Fresh Out the Podcast. And of course, here at the Nerdtropolis Moviegoer Society, talking about all the good things we've been seeing.
Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Moviegoer Society. Once again, I'm Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and we will see you at the movies.